All right, at 4:34, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Let's break away from that civil hearing right now to talk about heart health, because February, you might know, is American Heart Month, and it really just gives us another opportunity to talk about to focus on our heart health, our cardiovascular health, still the leading cause of death. So we want to join Novant Cardiologist Dr. Dabhadkar, a cardiologist there. And Novant, thank you, doctor, for joining us this afternoon on Live Impact News.
Thanks for having me. Really glad to be here.
All right, so we focus on it in February, but of course we need to be talking about this every and looking at our cardiovascular health pretty much every day. What age range would you say is that critical time for adults when they need to be really looking at their heart health?
So, and then my take on this is, and I always tell my patients, the sooner you start thinking about it, it's much better. Typically, something like a heart disease or heart attack will show up a little bit later in life, like beyond 50s, 60s. The older you are, the risk is higher. But the risk factors start much earlier. And there's enough evidence at this point to show that even kids can start building up plaque if they're actually eating a lot of junk food, or if there's genetic predisposition to developing heart disease. So sooner is always better. So I'm always happy to see younger patients in the office.
Wow. I mean, we're talking what, like elementary school age kids to talk about that?
That's where your habits start developing. It's funny, we're chatting about this today. I just came out of a room of a patient, and she said she had not eaten a vegetable until she turned 80. And so she never ate vegetables, and now she's severely obese, dealing with weight issues and all of that. And she kind of blames her parents. She's like, yeah, my mom never eats vegetables. And then it got me thinking, the sooner we start, it's better. Elementary school is when you start developing all those habits. Do you have a soda, or do you have chips with your food? Or do you have fruits with your lunch and all of that? So I think sooner is better.
Yeah, sure. So good habits start at home. What should we be talking about keeping stocked in the refrigerator or in our pantry?
So one of the things that commonly happens, I'm sure it happens to all of you, is when you're bored watching TV, watching sports, you just go open the fridge for no good reason, peek what's in there, and just leave or grab something. So my take is the more natural foods that we have, the less processed foods that we have is better. So if talking about the fridge, I typically love having fruits, mostly berries. So something like blueberries is a fantastic snack, quite underutilized. So there's enough evidence with blueberries. If you have a handful of blueberries, they can literally lower your blood pressure by a little bit within a couple of hours. So that's how quick the impact is. Any sort of fruits are absolutely great for the fridge. Going to the pantries, I'm a huge fan of nuts, because nuts have a lot of antioxidants. So just kind of a handful of nuts, not a full bag of nuts, will satisfy your hunger cravings, filling you up, while at the same time not putting too many calories in you.
I love hearing all this, doctor, because I had blueberries and some almonds earlier today. So I'm going to keep that on the list of keeping replenishing the berries. Does organic matter?
And that's an excellent question. So organic matters not necessarily from a heart disease standpoint, but the thing with fruits and berries is often there's no covering that you're removing before you eat it. For example, I prefer to buy fruits like berries in organic fashion, because then there's no insecticides and pesticides and all of that on it. But just in terms of other things like nuts or even fruits with wrappings on them, like bananas and oranges, I don't mind buying non-organic. Ideally, I'd want to eat everything organic. That would be the best. I was at the grocery store last weekend, and I was comparing the prices, and there's a $2 difference between a small box of organic blueberries versus non-organic. But my kids are young, so I decided to splurge those additional $2.
Oh, good for you.
But yeah, if you can afford, go for organic all the time.
Okay. All right. All right. Sounds good. I'll save those extra $2 and splurge. All right. So conversely, then, how about the foods you should avoid?
And that's where I think we really need to focus on, because I get this question, what should we eat all the time? And what I tell people is eating good foods is not going to negate the bad foods that you eat. The typical culprits in typical American diet, or well, I shouldn't call it American diet, it's the fast food diet, is going to be something like sodas and chips and fries. Those are probably the biggest culprits. And most of us know it. We just find it hard to resist them. What the hidden risks are, or what these days sort of classify as protein bars. If you think about protein bars, you're like, oh, I ate a protein bar, so I mean, must be eating healthy. The way I think of protein bar is essentially it's a candy bar with a nice wrapping, a little bit better marketing, and in probably in athletic clothes, if you will. They make it sound healthy. That's probably one hidden risk that a lot of us ignore. The second is cereals. So a lot of these cereals are again desserts with a little bit of sprinkling of vitamins on it and a healthy label stuck on the front. But none of that is actually true. So those are the two things. And the third thing is orange juice. People think, oh, I had fruit juice instead of fruit. That must be healthy. And even with fruit juice, I think it's literally flat soda with much better marketing. Because rather than having fruit juice, I would rather that people have fruits. So the advantage of eating fruits are it's complex sugars and you're taking fiber in. So you're absorbing the sugar much slower compared to drinking fruit juice. Because once you're drinking fruit juice, the sugar gets absorbed really quick, causes an insulin surge on your body, causes the sugar high. So I would say those three things are kind of sneaky, which we assume are healthy, and they're actually not healthy.
All right. That just sounds really sad. Protein bars
I'm sorry.
out. Okay, no problem. It's okay. Um, how
And,
about
and,
the?
and I'm
Yeah, go ahead, doctor.
I'm sure there's some protein bars which are excellent. So I have a colleague who loves eating protein bars. He's a cardiologist himself, and he usually looks at the packages and all of that. And he has found a few that have very less sugar. So as long as you're careful about reading the packages, you may get away with eating some protein bars.
Okay, all right. I'll get through the rest and then be done with it anyway. How about the Mediterranean diet? We've heard about this Mediterranean diet for years now. What makes it so great for heart health?
Absolutely. So the Mediterranean diet has been studied quite a bit and still quite a bit underutilized in our day-to-day diet. So what makes it so if you think about the foods that we usually eat from natural stuff, so they're either high in carb or high in fats, right? The unhealthy foods are high in both at the same time. The good thing about the Mediterranean diet is there's a clear classification, what's for proteins, what's not for proteins, and all of that. One central tenet of the Mediterranean diet is extra virgin olive oil. So the study has shown that people who take adequate extra virgin olive oil in their diet, along with nuts, have 30% lower risk of heart attack and stroke. So it is kind of an anti inflammatory diet without the bad combination of refined carbohydrates and sort of saturated fats. So it's quite underutilized. And then you have a lot of fish in it as well.
Okay, so really, it sounds like the diet plays a big part in our heart health. Is it the biggest part, or do genetics are they equal or more? How does this work? How can we
So
optimize our life?
absolutely. And that's a great question. So I divide these factors as controllables and things that you cannot control. So I always think of it as like you have to control the controllables. You cannot control your family, you cannot control genetics. So genetics probably plays a much bigger role in the overall risk, but you can't change that. So we have to focus on diet. And diet is probably number one, along with exercise and all of that. So you cannot exercise enough to get rid of the extra calories that you had for dinner last night, or you cannot run away from the ice cream, right? So diet is probably number one that we should control. Exercise equally important. And people often get stuck on like, hey, what's good to eat? What proportions should I have? But what I tell people is avoid things that you should be avoiding and focus on being decent for the most part. You don't need to have a perfect diet, because if you aim for perfection, you're going to keep failing at it, and you're going to get discouraged and stop following it altogether.
Sure, sure. So, lot to tackle. If someone wanted to do something today, this week, to get control of their heart health, what do they do, doctor?
Take a picture of the refrigerator, and then I would recommend keep taking pictures of your refrigerator as you're improving your diet. And what you want to see is how your refrigerator and even the pantry is changing. So, instead of having any of the processed things, you replace them with natural things. Like you want more fruits in your refrigerator, more healthy stuff, more fish instead of more processed food. And same thing with the pantry. So I would say stock with fruits, and then in the pantry, stock it with nuts.
All right, very good. Dr. Dabhadkar, anything else we need to know?
That's most of it. I think we covered most of it. I don't want to overwhelm everyone, but my final word is keep it very simple. The more complex we make it, it's harder to follow through.
All right. Sounds good. Like that advice, one step at a time, and all in the name of progress, not perfection. Dr. Dabhadkar, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. From Novant Health Cardiologist there. Very good information. We're going to take a break on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.